Please join me in recognizing Macaulay Honors College alumnus, entrepreneur, humanitarian, and recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree, Ethan Frisch.
With the approval of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York, Macaulay Honors College awards Ethan Frisch the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa in recognition of his notable achievements in humanitarian service and socially responsible entrepreneurship, along with his passion for learning and learning from service to make a global impact. As Macaulay's first alum to receive an honorary degree from the college, Mr. Frisch provides an inspiring illustration of the transformative power of a Macaulay education and how our purpose-driven graduates can bring their talents, passions, and education into the world in service of the public good.
Thank you very much. Next time my 4-year-old, as he was this morning, is refusing to take off his pajamas and put on his clothes, I'm going to call Anne and have her explain to him why he should listen to my instructions to get dressed in the morning. Just set this up. As everybody said, I'm very proud to be a Macaulay graduate, a CUNY graduate, City College, CUNY BA. Any CUNY BA students? Yeah, nice. It was controversial, to be honest, when I was both a CUNY BA and a Macaulay graduate, 2008. It was controversial. We had to, convince people. 18 years has been a long journey, and I've tried to sort of synthesize it to share some core lessons with all of you. I don't know what I have to offer exactly, but I'm going to try. I'm going to do 3 things today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got here, I guess, to this stage. I'm going to give you a few pieces of advice, take them for what they're worth, and I'm going to tell you a funny story, again, about my toddlers at the end, to sort of wrap it up. So bear with me. I graduated from City College, Macaulay, and CUNY BA in 2008. I went to Stuyvesant High School 2004. Any Sty students? I did a year of Bronx Science. Does that help? Maybe not. All right, there we go. Okay. I think, like many of you, really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was graduating into, I didn't realize it at the time, but graduating into a financial crisis. I lost my job in 2008. I've been laid off probably 6 times over the course of my career. Restaurants that have closed, startups that have collapsed, foundations in that case that lost their endowment. But I have had some common themes. I've always loved to cook. I learned to cook from my father, who's back there in the audience. And I wanted to find ways to put that to use, not just as a creative or, I don't know, gotta cook dinner kind of thing, but also as a way to use food to reach people, to say something about the world. Also, I forgot, I wanted to mention my grandmother. I'm a New York City public school graduate, kindergarten to college. I went to PS 75 on the Upper West Side. So it's especially meaningful for me to be receiving this degree from CUNY, from the public education institution. But I also wanted to mention my grandmother, Lee Parker, Hunter College class of 1948. Yeah, pretty amazing. So I wound up, after a layoff, I wound up working in a restaurant kitchen. I had always loved to cook. I read the Anthony Bourdain book, which even then was a big deal, and wound up in a restaurant kitchen. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never cooked professionally before. I didn't go to culinary school. I mean, I got a free education from Macaulay. I wasn't going to pay for a culinary degree. So I wound up in a kitchen and just kind of got my ass kicked a little bit and learned how to operate. I learned to make ice cream and started an activist ice cream cart called Gorilla Ice Cream. This was the summer of 2010. How old were you guys, 4 or something? So, a big summer for street food in New York City. It was a social enterprise, an activist enterprise, we called it, as we call Burlap Barrel today. We donated all the profits to the Street Vendor Project and served flavors inspired by revolutions and political movements, trying to get people to think a little bit more about what was happening in the rest of the world and how those issues might affect them. It didn't really work, to be honest. People just wanted to eat ice cream. You're selling ice cream. You don't have vanilla. Okay, that was the end of the conversation for them. We were doing these conceptual flavors. I had been working in high-end restaurant kitchens. We had a blowtorch on the cart, bruleeing bananas to order. It was a whole thing. And I left that experience to go to grad school to become an aid worker. I wound up working in Afghanistan, where I lived for more than 2 years, working for an organization called the Aga Khan Foundation. I spent some time with Doctors Without Borders in Jordan, doing logistics for a maternity hospital on the Syrian-Jordanian border. Not me personally, but we as a unit were delivering more than 25 babies a week to Syrian refugee families in northern Jordan. These were all, it's easy to look back or for you to listen to these stories and see how there's a natural flow. It seems like the narrative goes naturally from one step to the next, but let me tell you clearly, that was not the case at the time. Every transitional moment was a major decision, could have been a crisis, and I found a way through it based on, how I wanted to be spending my time and what I was interested in, pursuing those interests. Those were skills and I guess life techniques that I learned at CUNY, at Macaulay, at City College, doing Model UN, doing theater, navigating the CUNY bureaucracy I don't need to tell you guys, those are life skills, you really learn how to work within an organization and how to advocate for yourself, how to advance change for causes that you believe in by having to deal with bureaucracy like CUNY's and elsewhere. So congratulations, you made it through. Another thing that I'll just mention briefly, the value of a free education. To be able to move out into the world without student debt is a game changer. I think I didn't really realize it at the time, but to have the freedom, the flexibility to make choices, take risks, pursue ideas, not have to worry about how you're making that next payment is night and day for the kinds of opportunities that you will be able to pursue in your lives. From Afghanistan, I wound up back in New York, a little bit lost, kind of burnt out and disillusioned with the international aid industry, trying to figure out what to do next. And I decided to give myself a 3-month window to see if I could start a spice company. Now, 10 years later, that seems like it kind of makes sense. You could look back on it and say, okay, this is where we could wind up, but please let me tell you, that was not the case at the time. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no money. I had no experience. I had truly no idea what I was doing. I ran the business out of my 1-bedroom apartment in Jackson Heights, like 800 square feet. I called the FDA. Can I register my apartment with as a warehouse, a spice warehouse? And I was like, yes. I mean, it was all kind of gray area, but I made it happen. I couldn't afford a warehouse. And I wanted to, as I have many times in my life, test out an idea in the easiest and lowest risk possible kind of way. So I turned my apartment into a spice warehouse. We had over a metric ton at the height, over a metric ton of spices in my apartment. You could smell it from the elevator. It's Jackson Heights, so everybody's cool with it, but you could really smell it from the elevator. And I turned my living room into a fulfillment center. We would get orders on the website. People think they're coming from a official place, but it was like me at 2 in.the morning, packing orders and dropping them off at the local post office. I did that along with my co-founder Ori for over a year. Crazy, just crazy. Why would you do that to yourself? But I did, and eventually we found a company that was willing to pack the spices for us, a company that was willing to do the shipping, order fulfillment for us. And over the last 10 years, we've built the business incrementally. We have no outside investors. We're a social enterprise. We work directly with smallholder farmers in now 30 different countries, mostly producers of very specialty spices, culturally significant, historically significant, really interesting products, many of which have never been exported before. So we build these supply chains with the goal of, I sort of refer to it jokingly as the redistribution of wealth. How do we set up a supply chain where an American who can afford to spend a couple extra dollars, by the way, on an exceptional quality spice, super fresh, very flavorful, how do I send that money directly to a farmer in Guatemala or Tanzania or at the other end of the supply chain, and how do we get people to care a little bit as they're doing it about the people behind those products. So just to underscore, this was always political work for me. This came out of my leftist days in the City College Political Science Department, studying insurgencies and revolutions. This was a way to move money around the world, and in particular, to focus it on places that had been brutalized by the actions of the U.S. and the U.S. government. I'm talking about Guatemala, I'm talking about Afghanistan, I'm talking about Vietnam, I'm talking about Palestine. Those are the supply chains that we've set up, and we do this, this has happened, I'll just emphasize again, happened slowly, happened incrementally, but at this point we do it at a certain scale, at least for our, we're not in my apartment anymore, amazing. We've paid about $6.5 million in total payments over the last 10 years to farmers around the world. That's like 1.5 million pounds of spices that we've imported. We have a long-term partnership with Dr. Jane Goodall herself and the Jane Goodall Foundation. We have a partnership with Martha Stewart, which, to be honest, didn't do very well, but it's fun to say her name on stage. We've really we've found ways to build a business. We were on Shark Tank in 2021. You want to see a funny pitch? It was 2023, rather. Anyway, you can watch our funny pitch on Shark Tank. Gwyneth Paltrow was our guest shark. Anyway, it's easy, again, to look back at an experience and build a narrative, think about how it has all come together kind of miraculously, but that was not necessarily even the goal at the time. We were just trying to solve the next problem and move forward. So on that note, I'm going to try to give you a few pieces of advice. And the first piece of advice is be an incrementalist. I'm not the first person to say this on this stage today, but progress is more important than achievement. You know that already, but continue working on your day-to-day activism and goals and ideas in an incremental way. There may be big breaks. You may go on Shark Tank. There may be these moments that move things forward quickly, but for the most part, activism is something that happens incrementally. You chip away at it through your daily actions and your daily work and your daily interactions with others. So be an incrementalist is my first piece of advice. And my second piece of advice is be an operator. And what I mean by that is, in my experience, ideas are overrated. At the very least, they're too easy. You could sit around and have a million fun ideas, and that's really great, but the hard part is how to get them done. And I'll say this, you have a way easier access through the technology on your phone to communities and customers that even 10 years ago starting this company, we didn't exist. You could stand up a website tomorrow. I took pictures and had to upload them, and it was hard. I mean, the old days, but it was harder 10 years ago than it is today. And so I really encourage you to take advantage of the ease, the low risk ability that you have to put an idea out into the world, host an event, send an email, build a website, see how an idea resonates by doing, not just by talking about it. So my second piece of advice, be an operator. And my third piece of advice is to accept no conventional wisdom. Let me tell you, I'll tell you very clearly, adults have no idea what they're doing. And I can tell you that from my own personal experience. I have no idea what I'm doing. I still have no idea what I'm doing. But the people that you will meet and interact with in your workplaces, in your day-to-day lives, they have no idea what they're doing. So you, given your age and your experience and your brilliance and your CUNY education, you deserve all of the confidence that anybody else in the world deserves. You know what to do. And even in the moments where somebody older than you or somebody more senior than you in an organization is going to say, this is the way we have to do it, they are probably wrong. You know what to do. So that's my final piece of advice. Accept no conventional wisdom. Find your own path. Trust your own assessment of a situation, and make it happen. And to wrap up, I'll just acknowledge this is a time of immense change. I'm, again, not the first person to say this on this stage. You don't need me to tell you. I find a lot of comfort personally in the long view of history and my work with spices. Spices go way back, the spice trade and what that represents. I find a lot of comfort in looking at the long view of history. Things change, and the energy of change is powerful. The momentum that's generated when things are changing, even when it feels like the change is for the worse or has a lot of risk associated with it, the momentum is the hard part. So My encouragement to you with this last little anecdote is to find your place in that momentum. Use the momentum of a world that's already changing to change it in the direction that you see fit, to move it towards the vision that you have for the world. So I have two little toddlers. Zabi is 4 and Ellie is 2. We live in Jackson Heights. And when they get on their scooters, you cannot stop them. They are gone, just gone. And in the early days, when they were first getting on their scooters, I would run after them and try to stop them. Yell, stop, the corner. It's impossible. But it didn't work. They wouldn't stop. They couldn't stop. The wind was in their ears. They were excited. They were moving quickly. They couldn't stop. So what I have learned to do since then is to yell steer instead of stop. They can turn the handlebars. They can turn a corner. They can spin around much more easily than they can stop. So that's my final piece of advice for you is steer. Turn the handlebars. Choose the direction that you're going at this moment and at other moments in your life when you're faced with a decision. Imagine me running down 34th Avenue, waving my arms, screaming steer at my toddlers, and you'll figure out what to do. Thank you very much.
Nicely done. Thank you so much.